good time so far? Yes. Yeah, everything's pretty well organized. My handlers are taking care of me. The staff of the hotel seems to be doing nicely too, so a lot of great things. Thank you all. Thanks everybody for being here. Were you guys waiting outside for very long? Was it terribly long? Okay, right. Sometimes I see people lined up and then the door opens over here and they're still sitting over there. And do come in, you know. So yeah, so we're all enjoying ourselves today, right? Yes. That's the right answer. I don't particularly care if it's true. I just want that answer right. All right, yes, this is the Paul St. Peter Q&A. So here I am. I'm sure you have a lot of questions. Sadly, I left all my answers up in my room. Okay, so that's why I sent, no, I'm kidding, right? It's a dumb joke, but I used it anyway, right? Before we get started on the Q&A thing, a little bit about me. I was born in Fargo, North Dakota, and raised in San Diego. I began doing theater when I was about 14 or 15 years old. One thing led to another. I never thought of myself as a singer, but I joined a theater group that did nothing but musicals. So I went and auditioned, and I sang the Ballad of the Green Beret, believe it or not. That was my audition song. I couldn't think of anything else, and on my 6th grade graduation, we had sung it. And so, all right, so I went in there, and the director said, now you see everyone, Paul has a very nice bass voice. I became a bass that day, you know. And from there, I auditioned for the Civic Light Opera Company, which was called Starlight at that time. And it was the first year I didn't get in, the second year I did, and I did 3 seasons there. And the chorus master for the Starlight Opera was also the chorus master for the San Diego Opera Company. So he kind of drafted me. So I went from singing the Ballad of the Green Beret to doing 12 operas, you know. So again, you know, things just happen, kind of, you know. I never intended it to be that way, but that's the way it went. And then when I came to LA and started actually taking voice lessons for the first time ever, my voice teacher said, you know, all these years, Paul, you should have been a bass baritone. You should have been a baritone. You don't have that, you have an unusual low range, but you don't have that rumbly thing. So I'm going to work your voice up. So that helped me to not only develop and strengthen my voice and my lungs, but also change my vocal range. And so what I do now as a voice actor has a lot to do with what I learned as a singer. These things all kind of bleed into from one place to another, all these things happening. So whatever you're doing in your life, always kind of keep your eyes open, because things will lead you in directions you didn't expect, you know, hopefully good ones. This has all been a good ride for me anyway. As a voice actor, I almost happened upon that accidentally. As a dialectician, as an actor, I learned the dialects, I learned phonetics. I do about 50 different accents and dialects. I've actually taught it in college. I've never been to college, but I've taught college. I've never spent a day at a university of any kind, but everybody that I ever studied, anyone who ever has taught me has asked me to come and teach with them. Again, very, very unexpected. You don't know where it's going to lead you. And here I am looking around like, am I going to get caught? Because you're supposed to have a credential. And to get a credential, you have to have a degree. So I just make sure to, you know, I knew I loved you, and I really love you now. When I go on to a university, I've been asked by a professor, somebody with a PhD, to come and teach with them, because they don't know how to do what I do. So I kind of get that, but still I feel a little weird going on to other people that are far, far better educated and more well-read than I am, who are teaching there. So they bring me in there and it feels a little uncomfortable. But I talked to an instructor one time, a fellow actor, and he also had been teaching. And I asked him about it, and I said, yeah, it's just, it feels odd to me. He said, Paul, listen, remember that a BS is just that? Remember that an MS is more of the same? And a PhD, it's piled higher and deeper, okay? And so now one thing, and I don't put down anybody that has studied that, because I wish I had done so for a lot of reasons, including the scholarship, you know. I love having a college textbook, and you can't just go buy one, you know. These amazing books that have this phenomenal information. I remember from high school, there were these books about American history. I wish I had access to them, but they're textbooks. I can't just go buy one like that. I really envy that. I like history. So knowing the theater history and being able to study all that when you were in college, I keep all the books in my library. Kind of miss that part. But I kind of got over the whole thing. I just call myself now a guest instructor. If anybody asks or I get tapped on the shoulder by the credential police, you know, I'll just go ahead and let them know, look, you know, I was invited over here by Professor, you know, blah, blah, blah over here, so I'll be teaching here for a couple of weeks. And I should be okay, you know. On the other hand, if you read about me in prison, you'll understand what happened, you know. Release Xemnas. You can't keep a worm bonded up in a cage. It's just wrong. There's something wrong with that. I don't think you can do it, no. That would be awful. Especially when I'm feeling larval, you know. I came up with that one time. I walked in to do a session and the engineer said, are you going to digivolve today? I said, no. I'm feeling very larval this afternoon, so I'm not going to digivolve. But I mean, how do you feel larval? I mean, but I just came up with that out of the blue. I said, I'm feeling very larval, so I can't digivolve today. Okay, yeah, enough about me talking about me. Now, what do you think about me? No, I'm kidding.
You're awesome.
Thank you. Now, that's the right answer, see? Three of us. Do you guys know that? Whenever somebody else comes in the room, always go, one of us. It's really great when you're playing Cards Against Humanity. 1 o'clock in the morning at a con, we're all like blitzed and having a great time, and somebody comes walking and we all turn around and go, one of us. Oh, and since I have to remind myself to do this, this gets asked anyway almost all the time, you know, what's the weirdest question or the weirdest thing that's ever happened? So I'll just throw this one out to you so we're all on the same page at the beginning, because I'm going to need you guys and need your help, all right? One of the questions I was asked in a panel that hit me blindside, I had no idea about any of this stuff. This little girl put her hand up and she says, does it bother you that people are calling you man sex? Honestly, I hadn't heard that. I had no idea. I said, they're calling me what? You know? Because yeah, well, if you take Xemnas and move the letters around, you get man sex. And I said, it doesn't bother me, but I've never heard of that before. But now, from Ireland, and later this year I'm going to be in Australia for a con, and I'm spreading the word. I make sure that everybody in the room chants along with me and join me now and say, man sex, man sex, man sex, man sex, man sex.
That was the best thing to walk into.
I did that at a con. I'm sorry, what was that?
That was the best thing to walk into.
Oh, well, depending on who you're with, you know, Xemnas here. Five of us. See, they get it, the one of us thing. I was telling the story about that. Okay, so yeah, this is the Q&A thing. Now, I have 8 different panels that I do about, I'm going to be doing the villains of Paul St. Peter, and tomorrow I'm going to be doing my Pirate Curses panel. Try to be there at 6 o'clock if you can. It's a lot of fun. I am in full pirate gear, well armed, you know, and you get to participate. I pick 12 volunteers to get up and utter insults and curses, and then the audience members, as the crew, get to applaud for who's best. And as you move up, the prizes get better. So it's fun. So be ready for that. I'll talk a little bit about pirate lingo. Unfortunately, they give us these panels at less than an hour. They're 10 minutes short, so there's not much I can do as far as the lingo, because I like to explain things and tell a little bit about the history. Like where does the term the cat is out of the bag comes from, you know? And or one of my worst jokes, why do you suppose we pirates be so mean and rotten? No reason, we just are. It's everybody groans, and yet they keep it. Everybody uses it. It's like, 2 of us, 2 of us, 2 of us, 2 of us. That, or I like it when people walk in and go, where the hell have you been? You know. Or thank God you've arrived. I've missed you. You know. Okay, so, yeah, I'm sure you have a whole bunch of burning questions, or even if they're not burning. Everyone, go ahead and ask away. That's why I'm here, so, sir.
When you were doing Naruto, how did you come up with the Nine-Tailed Fox?
Question was, how did I come up with the voice for Kurama in the Nine-Tailed Fox, as the Nine-Tailed Fox in Naruto? I was approached. Such is my reputation because of the things I've been doing all this time. I get to be well known for certain things, like doing dialects and character voices. I almost never get to use my own voice. Two of us, two of us. Okay, I'll stop it. I'm even annoying myself sometimes. I get up in the morning, God, you're annoying. I go back to bed, you know. And I feel much better. As I say, I'm well known enough because of the characters and all the stuff that I do that a lot of times I don't audition anymore. They know what I do and they just call me. It's kind of cool, you know. And especially when it pays really well. You just walk in and go, oh, that was effortless. Thanks, you know. What happened was they called me and they said, we need you for this character, we need you to do that voice. Now, directors and producers and people in LA that know my work refer to it as that voice. And so when the same director I have for Kingdom Hearts, Bob Buckholz, tremendous, good voiceover guy too, but a pretty great director and writer, you know. He called me in for a project once. He says, yeah, the client wants you to do that voice. So this could be somebody from Japan or France, and they know what I do. They know I do that voice, so they brought me in. So yeah, I came in to be Kurama, and it's always fun when there's somebody from the client. Like I went in to do a game. I've done several on different platforms, Naruto games. I was in the booth by myself, as we always are, and the director and the guy from the client of whoever it was, Toonami, or I can't remember who did this particular one, but they were here on the other side of the soundproof glass. And they went ahead and started me off, and I had my first cue, whatever that was, like, do not destroy Naruto. And I could hear through the glass, the client went, whoa! So apparently they sent him to supervise the thing, but he had no idea about the product. And that's not unusual. They will send, you know, like somebody's second assistant secretary or a guy from accounting. We need somebody from the client to go, and would you just kind of watch over everything? And they go, okay. Then they show up and have no idea what they're looking for. So I did that voice and this guy almost fell off his chair. You know? But that's the one that's referred to as that voice. So when they tell me, I already know what they need, okay? Now it is a voice that I do as a basic monster or demon or you know, satanic voice, right? And I do variations of it, okay? Kingdom Hearts fans? I didn't think so. Nobody ever shows up because of, no, I'm kidding. I did have one little story. I was at one convention and I was doing a Q&A panel and stuff like that, and I said, how many people Digimon fans? No hands went up, you know. And then I asked again, how many people Bleach fans? No hands went up. And then I asked them about, I went on to the bigger stuff. I said, well, how about, you know, Kingdom Hearts fans? Nothing. I said, Naruto? Nothing. I said, now, do you guys even know who I am? Or did you just walk in through an open door and sit down? Because I mean, it's like they didn't know anything I did. I went like, all right, well, welcome anyway, you know. My name's Paul, how you doing? When I do variations of that voice, I will do, for instance, when I talk about making it demonic or something like that, it's the one I like to do best when I'm in an elevator with like 9 people, you know? Because they can't get away, you know. Two of us. Welcome, please sit down. Right now, I'm kidding. Yeah, it's fun if you're, I had to do this one time because I was telling my handler about that because there was a time when I didn't have time to audition, warm up. Sometimes you get that call, be there in 20 minutes or something like that. And so I can't remember the circumstances, but I had not done my voice lesson yet that day because I do my voice work almost every day. scales, songs, all this stuff that I did when I first started doing voice lessons. It's how I keep my voice strong and, you know, an edge on it so that when they do call you at the last damn minute, you're ready, you know. So I needed to do something to get my voice a little more worked up. Now, it's not good for you to do what I do in the monster voice, okay? I can get away with it because I'm trained, and I can give you up to 5 hours of that. I simply tell them, not 2 days in a row, please. You know, because you get a little bit raw. And I could do it 2 days in a row, but I have the control. I'm the one that says yes and no. We can do this in 3 more days, or they usually go, well, actually, we don't have time till next week. I go, perfect, you know. So I had needed to warm my voice up and get the blood going and all that stuff, so I was leaning in the back of the elevator thinking about my audition, and I just suddenly went, you know, I looked up and like everybody was like, or you know how people are nervous on elevators and they're so nervous that they don't want to make eye contact, everybody except for the numbers. As I mess with people other times, I'll walk into the elevator and I'll be the only one that doesn't turn around. Just face the wall, you know. Digimon fans? Yeah. And nobody wants to believe that the same voice of Kurama and Kokomon in the Digimon movie is also Wormmon. I put my placards out on the table to show my characters, and they're going like, no way! Because they come here, they want to hear Kurama and they want to hear Xemnas. And they look and they see Wormmon, they go, oh, impossible! You know? For me, I think it's more impossible that I do Kurama and I also do Punch and Cowboy Bebop. That's the weirdest character I've ever done. Another question? Yes, sir.
Could you tell us a little more about that routine in terms of maintaining your voice, and like are there things you avoid to
Yeah, one of the things that I've learned, especially as a teacher, I taught at Los Angeles Broadcasting School. I was on the staff for 2 years. Again, I had 3 other instructors, all graduates of New York University. And I'm going like, I barely got out of high school. But everybody that studied there liked me best. You know, I guess I was more approachable, and being an actor who became a teacher, I understand, I'm the guy on the other end, okay? The person that needs to learn from me needs to be taught a certain way. Instead of, well, this is the way I learned it in college, and you're going to learn it that way too, and if you have difficulties, well, that's not my problem, you know? I like to do along the lines of teaching the way I would want to be taught. Clear. One of the things that I learned there, and there's a whole list, no dairy products, no soda, that's syrup-based, okay? No citrus. You can't have chocolate. I know, it's horrifying, isn't it? Like, pizza, no cheese. Yeah, the number of things you don't do to make your voice work really well. Not every actor does this, okay? A lot of actors can go out and do whatever they want, their voices are fine, you know. I'm a trained person, I do this, again, I do my vocal stuff almost every day. Don't smoke anything.
what is that stuff every day?
Well, my scales, singing. I do my voice lesson just about every day. So I do the scales to warm up, and then I sing a bunch of different songs that are a good way to stretch my range up and down. I have about a 3-octave range, for those of you who sing. Wow. You know, it's about, you know, I mean, by comparison, David Bowie, 5-octave range. To me, the greatest rock vocalist ever, you know. I know his work going way back. I saw him in concert twice, you know. Want to make people jealous? When Diamond Dogs came out, I was at the Diamond Dog concert, you know. Saw him live doing all this stuff from, you know, ground control to Major Tom. Yeah, and he was up on this chair on a hydraulic lift like 40 feet up, and then he slowly, during the song, moved down and was suspended over the audience. And it was like, I didn't go like, you know. Then I saw him in Station to Station, you know. Yeah, as far as the vocal work, again, I do the warm-ups too. You know, rubber baby buggy bumpers, red leather, yellow leather, black bug's blood, and a tough one, unique New York. Everybody goes, unique New York, new. So I do all this complicated, difficult stuff to keep an edge, to be ready all the time. So yeah, 4, 5, 6 songs after I do what are called my vocalese, run the scales and different vowels and stuff like that. So all that stuff involves vocal care, vocal exercise, and all the stuff that I don't have in my diet. To answer the question about alcohol, I shouldn't have much, okay? It's a drying agent. Coffee, tannic acid reduces swelling, so it can be good, but at the same time, caffeine dries you out. So, the jury is really out on coffee until they say, no, I'm going to keep drinking the damn stuff. Thank you again, Michelle. They locked us out of the green room, so she waited, the opportunity came and she might got me one, Yes, sir, in the back.
What can you tell us about Xemnas' role in Kingdom Hearts 3 without
Well, let me tell you what's going on here. In fact, we've been striking against Disney for 10 months now. We've been trying since October 2014 to get them to agree to a new contract regarding vocal care, transparency, so when we go in and work, they'll tell us what we're doing. One of us, one of us, one of us. And also a residual formula. People think we're all getting rich off of these games. We get our original pay, the session fee, and then our work belongs to them. We don't get even a red cent after that. So we've been striking Disney for 10 months and 10 other companies, including Activision. So what can I tell you about it? Even if I knew anything, I couldn't tell you, but they don't tell us anything anyway. If we were going to go forward and do this right now, I don't know until I hear from my agent. She sends me an email, booking. They want you in for Kingdom Hearts, Thursday at 2 o'clock. That's how I find out. They don't give us any secrets, they don't tell us anything at all. I like to describe when I go in to do, like Naruto, this past Monday, I did episode 649. So you Naruto fans, there's more coming. Yeah, even more, And I like to describe it this way, though. We walk into the session, they give us a brief rundown of what's going on in this episode and what might have changed in the story, and it's on your mark, get set, act. We don't get to sit around the table and talk over plot points. We don't get to weigh in on the writing. Sometimes we have to fix it as we go. But they never give us anything. So the stories that we're told are basically the bare bones things. I will do a role in a film, Paprika. Somebody mentioned earlier to me. When I went in there, it was very disjointed because all they do is keep skipping to my parts. So I don't get to see very much. Luckily in that film I got to see a lot of the cool stuff, so I knew it was coming. But you never know the whole plot line. They just tell us what we need to know for that session, and then we're out. A couple hours we're out and the next actor comes in. Sir? No. Okay. See, I'm a reasonable guy.
Two-part, you mentioned about dialects and everything. I know of another actor who specializes in dialects. Have you ever had a chance to learn what she's doing? Star Trek, Scotty, do dialects? You ever get the...
I never met him, no, yeah. One of the actors that I wanted to meet from that show, yeah.
But in the second part on that one, your counterpart in Naruto, Maile Flanagan, you ever meet her when you went to the voice sessions?
We never worked together. We're all alone, so you don't... we had, I finished Gundam Iron-Blooded Orphans recently, and we had the strike party. That was the first time the actors got to see each other. You walk in, you walk out. No, unfortunately, I never had the pleasure. And it's good to meet other actors and talk about these things, but we don't get the opportunity until there's a party. Or, 3 weeks ago, I was at, I think it was at Kitsune in Green Bay, and Steve Bloom was here, and Bo Billingsley was here. And so we were having a Cowboy Bebop panel. And they said, what was it like working with Steve Bloom? I said, well, first of all, my character never had any scenes with the other ones. I was the guy on TV, I don't know you either, that's a lot of oolongs, And so they would just be watching me, but we actually, all of us said the same thing. We don't get to work with each other. We don't stand, microphone, 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 and do our scenes together. It's only when you do original animation. There's this thing that I did for Disney called Twinkle Toes. I get the feeling it's never going to get released. And we had, 8 actors in the room. Imagine if I said 9 actors. 8 actors, I mean, they were probably over there peeing themselves, 9 actors. But this is my panel, okay. No, I like youthful exuberance, just not on my time. When we do something original, like when I did XCOM, and I was Dr. Heinrich, we got to be in the same room and do these scenes together because they were going to animate what we did. Okay, so that was to me an honor. You know, I got to work with several actors that are very, very well known. There's one particular actor, Neil Donahue. If you saw him, you know who I'm talking about. White blonde hair. If you saw Band of Brothers, he was the officer that had that white blonde hair. I got to work with him. He's a super nice guy, a good actor, and it's an honor to be in the room and work with people like that. And in that setting where you actually get a script and you get to act and interact with each other. We unfortunately go in by ourselves. Sometimes I'm the first one and I'm not even interacting off of somebody else's voice. I'm creating the scene as we're going. Don't ever let anybody tell you that voice actors are not actors. What we do is in many ways much, much more difficult than being on stage. I know because I've been on stage a million times. And being in front of the camera. Okay, what we do, our stage is that big. Sometimes they have a shotgun mic on you, and it's right here. Can't move. And yet I see actors all the time that do, oh, I did voiceover there. You know, and the sound engineer's seeing the levels and all this crap like that. So you got to plant your feet, find your place. The engineer sets you up. That's your place. And when I need to get a drink of water and my left foot stays planted, I get that drink, like that, and I put my foot back right where I was. They've set me, that's where I go. You don't get to dance and jump and do all the things that your character is supposedly doing. Yes, sir?
Oh, I don't know if this was asked, I got a couple minutes late. Related to the last question, of the actors that you have worked with, is there anyone that stands out as like, someone you'd like to work with? And related to that, is there someone that you haven't worked with yet that you would like to?
As far as the actors that I work with, I've had the rare opportunity to work on stage with some of my fellow stage actors, my fellow voice actors, I should say. Richard Epcar and his wife Ellen Stern. Okay, yeah. We did something called Country Matters. It's based on Hamlet, but what if everybody lived? 15 years later, Hamlet has become the king of Denmark. Ophelia, unfortunately, had to marry the king of Norway. So all these crisscrossing things, and I got to play Horatio, and I had become a gravedigger. Okay, so they wrote this original script, and there we were on stage. Another actor that played Hamlet was a J.B. Blanc, another voice actor. So we got to do this stuff on stage with each other, and it's live. Wow. So doing that, many of the actors, I really do enjoy working with them to the small extent that we get to. We don't really, again, get to interact off stage. As far as who I would like to work with in the future, wow. I would like to work voiceover-wise with Antonio Banderas. I would like to work voice-wise with, he never does it, but I'd like to work with Jack Nicholson. Of course, I just don't think that's gonna happen, man. Two of us. Welcome. Welcome. Now we can lock the door. Welcome. As far as, sometimes you just think in terms of the famous ones like that. I'd like to work with Mike Myers, but I would like to work with him in a different way. And this is under the category of shots fired. I'd like to fix Shrek. It's funny, and he does a great job of doing a comical thing like that, but I'm a technician, I'm a phoneticist, I've done the research, I know the dialects, I've even visited many of the countries. He doesn't do that dialect well. Again, shots fired, but just count them. One of us. You can come in, it's all right. They usually don't stop, They smile at me, but I'm like, oh my God. Yeah, I mean, but off the top of my head, there are several I would like to work with in terms of doing a, voiceover on, a film or, Samurai Jack, cool, thank you. The t-shirt. Yeah. Oh, well, I'm sorry, actually not your turn, but I saw Samurai Jack, which I love the series, and the artwork on Samurai Jack is excellent. So when people ask me, well, what shows do you watch? That's the one that leaps to mind because the look is amazing. Yes, you had your hand up first, I'm sorry.
I have a really dumb question on the topic of Shrek. Have you seen Shrek the Musical?
No.
It's amazing. It's on Netflix.
Is it? Okay, yeah. Like most voice actors, I don't see the stuff I do, and I don't often watch other people's stuff either. You would think it was part of our homework, but the number of things we do is staggering. Steve Bloom wrote that up. He's in the Guinness Book of World Records. He's done approximately 300 games. Okay, imagine if he tried to get copies of each game, play them all, because my agent will receive a copy of a game that I'm in, and because the client will go like, hey, it'd be kind of nice, it would be great if we could have all the actors get a copy. I go, this is great. Now I have to buy a Wii. Oh yeah, that PS3, well this one's only PS4. So at some point, it just becomes incredibly impractical, but also we're just busy, And they don't give us copies of the series. I wish they would. I would love to have, when I did Monster, and I was Dr. Reichwein, or I didn't speak that way. It was Dr. Heinrich in XCOM, where I was the ex-Nazi scientist. Reichwein was, I talk more like this. That was the voice I used in that. I'd love to have that whole series, but they don't just give them to us. They should, but they don't, Is everything okay? Okay. Two more of us, two more of us, two more of us. Yes, sir, Samurai Jack.
I will say, why don't we fire one more shot at Mike Myers, because Shrek is fixable. You know what isn't fixable? The love movie.
I luckily didn't see it, so.
The summary is, hey, let's see how many times you can put a phallic symbol joke in this movie and avoid the R ratings.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's the way to sum up a script a lot of times.
And let's also shoehorn hockey.
Sure, who needs that, right? I know what George Clooney did one time. He came out, I think it was Saturday Night Live or something, but he was out by the audience talking, and they mentioned a movie he'd done that he didn't like very much. And he set this up. There was a guy sitting over and said, oh, I saw that. And Clooney said, excuse me, I owe you $7. That was classic, Like, I'd like to apologize right now for that film that I did. Sir?
Favorite game you've worked on?
Favorite game I've worked on? Wow, Kingdom Hearts is up there. I did, and this was a case where I got to be with the actors in the room. One of the, what do they call them? Expansions on Medal of Honor, I did Spearhead. And because they brought me in, they had 3 Brits and me. And I fooled them. I've done that every time. If they ever bring me in to be a Brit, I always fool them. My favorite was when I did this really awful movie of the week about Charles and Diana. This was years before she died, and they were having their marital problems and stuff like that. They made this really chintzy, crappy movie of the week, right? So they brought me in, and the director said, look, they said they want all Brits, but I want you to come in there, just keep the act up all day. And I said, okay, no problem. So we did everything. I even threw in a Scottish dialect at one point. And they got a kick out of that, but they told me later on. But we were out to dinner afterwards. And this one tall, elegant British lady, just super pale blue eyes, gorgeous, everything. She says, so Paul, how long have you been here?
Wow.
I said, my whole life. I mean, since you came from Britain. I said, no, I'm a dialectician. I'm an American. I was born here. And this other actor, this great guy named Julian. Julian looks at me and says, your English accent is smashing! Utterly fooled them, absolutely fooled them, yeah. But you have to keep the act up all day. But yeah, that's a specialty of mine. When I go in to do a dialect, I do the real thing, you might call it like that. Spearhead was a lot of fun because I got to be with them. I'd have to say the most fun I had was probably with XCOM. When I got to be in the room with the actors, and I got to do 2 different sessions. So there I was with these wonderful people, and the director was nice. He remembered me again and brought me in for another project. And then when I had to do XCOM, they did some rewrites. Sometimes the lines don't work, or they realize, oops, we shouldn't have written it that way. Then you need to come in and do a retake. It's great because they pay you a whole session fee. You walk in and go, I'm sorry, I meant to say can't instead of cannot. That'll be $900. Thank you, Roger. I probably, if I was going to just name one, probably XCOM for that reason. Because it's great to go in and work on games, but you're working by yourself. I go in there and I'm like, Ansem the Wise, you look pathetic. And then I sit down. And this is the way it went at the very beginning. Bob Buckles, like I say, the director, when I went in to do that show, he said, okay, this is the way it works. We'll have you do one take, and we'll talk about it for about 10 minutes. And then we'll, give you changes of direction or anything like that. I thought he was exaggerating. Now, I'm what I call a stand-up guy. I don't sit down when I work, I stand up. We think faster, energy, everything works better, the brain's much better standing up. That's how we evolved, for it to be upright. So I stand up. I call myself a stand-up guy. They say, you want to stand up or sit down when you work? I said, I'm a stand-up guy. And so they set the microphone, everything like that. But I said, well, maybe bring me in a bench if it's going to take a long time. He was not exaggerating. I'm in the booth, and I would say something like, yes, it is. And sit down. And I'm not kidding, I look in the booth, and there's Bob, there's 2 Japanese clients, there's a client from France, they have people on the phone in different parts of the world, and pretty soon it's like this.
Oh my God.
I'm sitting there going like, what the hell could they be talking about? And then the crowning irony is that when they finish, Bob gets on the talkback, he says, okay, that was great, let's move on to the next one. Now, I don't know how long it would take if I said, no. What could be so complicated? It took, they got people all over the world in different time zones. They got some poor schmuck in Australia who's like going like, yes it is. Nah, I don't think that was right. There's something wrong with it, I don't like it at all. Try it a different way this time, But that was weird working like that, because again, it's just one of those things where you're doing your dialogue alone. And I don't get to work off of anybody else, I listen to the Japanese for the timing sometimes, or the pronunciations, My Japanese pronunciations are very good. The Japanese hear me and they always say, sugoi. For those of you who don't know, that means awesome in Japanese, They'll listen to me and go, sugoi, someone who hasn't yet. Yes, sir.
Do you do a lot of dialect classes?
I do what?
Do you do a lot of dialect classes that you teach it?
I teach privately. I'm on call for various colleges when, like Cal State University, Los Angeles. Jose Cruz Gonzalez is the head of the drama department there. He knows my work from when I coached at Native Voices at the Autry, a Native American theater company. So he directed there, and he liked my work, so when he needed somebody to come in and coach his actors 2 years in a row, they have a festival of one-act plays. And 3 or 4 of the different plays needed, one needed an Irish dialect. Oddly enough, there were 2 young black actors, guy and a girl, and I'm not sure if the playwright intended this, but it seemed like they were ghosts. The playwright wrote this, it was called No Parking, if I recall correctly, after the hurricane hit New Orleans. One of the images that struck him was he saw a rowboat tied to a stop sign. So the water's like ever so high, and there's that thing. And the 2 characters are talking about this the whole time, and I got the feeling they were ghosts. But I had to try to teach them to sound, as offensive or weird as it might seem, to sound black. Yeah, they were both very, very upwardly mobile urban types, and I tried to get them to do this. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And somebody would say, she said, you know, I don't like, because they brought in a bunch of workers that were Latinos, and suddenly all these workers are there and they're listening to the music and playing guitars. I said, what's that? She said, I don't like it. I don't either. But this girl especially from Baltimore, I couldn't get her to, she would go, or I said, you didn't just eat something. It's like either sarcastic or yes or whatever. So I was having a terrible time doing that, you know. But it's one of the challenges. You get to work with actors from all over the place and do anything from different languages. Anybody play Resident Evil 5? Yeah, look for me in the credits. I did a zombie voice, but I spoke Swahili. Yeah. Swahili is actually a Bantu dialect, and so is Zulu, and I speak a fair amount of Zulu. Just because of my research. I love history, so I write notes and stuff like that, and I wrote all these notes, first of all the line in Zulu and then the translation. And Zulu, the tune patterns are the same as Italian. So they have the same kind of, so, espresso degno, como se dice, da-da-da-da, you see that? And Zulu, langalibalele. Langalibalele, that means the sun is shining brightly. Molungo is the word they use to describe a white man, molungo. But you hear these tunes and you keep going, is this Italian? You know? And so they brought me in to do Resident Evil 5, and they handed the script to me. They said, do you think you can handle that? It's Swahili. So what I mean, they just spring it on you? You know? If they told me, I would have said, well, I'm going to be kind of good on that because I've handled Zulu before. But I walk in, they say, oh, by the way, your character, one of your zombie characters, is going to be Swahili. You know, wherever this particular, because I don't know the game again, I didn't play it, but wherever this happened, a lot of the native people became, you know, zombies or The Walking Dead or something like that, and they were speaking. Unlike most zombies, they actually talk, you know. So they handed me the script, and I said, yeah, that's very close to Zulu, I can handle it, no problem. And I forgot about it completely until a couple of friends of mine, I was playing an RPG with a couple of my friends, and they showed up and said, dude, were you in Resident Evil 5? I was so taken aback because you don't get asked these questions, you know, especially when you're like third samurai from the left, you know. And Paul St. Peter is the third samurai from the left. You're not in the credits, okay? But they watched the credits at the very end, and it had under the heading of the zombies, my name was in there. Dude, was that you? I said, yeah. It's so strange to be approached by that. The use of the dialects and accents, mostly I teach privately. I like to teach one-on-one. It's great to teach a class, it's great education, and as they say, if you really want to learn, teach. It's amazing the things you encounter. And the thing I don't like though is like when I taught at the academy, I would be teaching a French accent, and there's 25 students. And I had to go student by student by student by student by student by student and do a shift. So R, the uvular R back here. If I wanted to say, qu'est-ce que tu es adorable? You are adorable. Qu'est-ce que tu es adorable? That in the back. Most people can't do that. Why would you? It's English, we don't use it. It's like the tapped R, like that. We don't use that in American English, so most people can't do it. I can't stop and work with that student one-on-one. That's what I want to do. I want to say, well, do this and practice that, and, you know, like this. That's the uvular R. Now, the way to practice that is to gargle. You know, it takes time, and a lot of times people never get it, but you get close. But that, one of my handlers at Anime Fargo sits out in the audience. Her name is Shastina. Everybody calls her Shasta. And I'll say something seductive to her in French, and then she's embarrassed as hell, and then I look right at her and go, oh. But unfortunately, those are sounds again, since we don't make them in American English, nobody's ready with them, so it's extremely rare, and I don't get the time in a class to work with them one-on-one. Someone? Sir?
So, what were your favorite parts that you did when you were voicing Xemnas from Kingdom Hearts 2 and Punch and Cowboy Bebop?
He came to my table earlier and had me do, had me speak as though Xemnas and Punch switched jobs. I said, first of all, Xemnas could never rock that hat. No way, right? As far as Xemnas goes, the lines that I had where I got to be kind of vindictive and manipulative, those were my favorite. As Punch, just all of them. That was the weirdest character to this day I've ever voiced. The story behind that, Kevin Seymour, that wonderful, wonderful, dearly departed man who was responsible for bringing anime to America. Okay, he was that significant, you know. Called me up for the job and he said, I got this new series, and they gave me a breakdown of all the characters, and there's this one, he has to sound like he's from Texas, but he has to sound Mexican too, and he's black, and they want all this sound and stuff, and he said, you were the only one I could think of. I wasn't sure if that was a compliment or not, because he was asking me to do something extremely weird, but I was the only one he could think of. He said, can you do 2 accents at one time? I said, no, you can't. I said, but I'll give you some. Thank you. We have 5 minutes. I'll give you this. I can change accents in the middle of a line of dialogue.
Wow.
So that's what I would do. That's why Punch sounds so weird. I'll begin with the accent, the Mexican accent, and go, shucks, howdy. And I finish with, how y'all doing? You know? So I'd switch back and forth, and I'd say, I don't know, Yudi, that's a lot of oolongs. And then I'd go right into, it's a real doozy there, you know? And so I was doing this, and poor Kevin, who was one of the shyest people you ever meet. When you talk to Steve Bloom, he will tell you, Kevin was just this quiet, super shy person. According to everything I'm told, when he heard my cues, when he and Mary Elizabeth were going over the cues and stuff like that, he would fall off his chair laughing. It was just, what I did was just so weird. At some point in the middle of a session, I thought, oh my God, what have we done? And Mary even said, you know, after I said, was it, no bounty for no computer, no way, you know? And she said, we'll get letters. You know? And you had a question?
I just wanted to know if you've done any other languages, like how many different languages have you spoken?
As a singer, I've handled about 25 languages. As a phoneticist, with the International Phonetic Alphabet, if you get good with it, you can transcribe anything. And then you read it back with the phonetics, like, wow, sugoi, you know. I speak a fair amount of, quite a lot of Spanish actually, a fair amount of Italian, some French, Zulu I talked about earlier. I've handled German a lot, and people are very impressed by my pronunciations, but I don't speak German. I have this weird thing though, I go into a voiceover session and they ask me if I need anything, I always say Wasser. I don't know why I ask for water in German, no idea. I say, yes, some Wasser. Water, please. So they all look at me, and especially when you're working with somebody from, you know, Japan, for instance, you know, ask them. I was doing an episode of something, I forget which show, at Bang Zoom, where I do so many of my things, and the engineer at the time was a guy named Ernie, and Ernie's a Latino, you know, and Mami Okada, one of the executives there at Bang Zoom, was in the session. And there was a bunch of people in there, the director and clients and stuff, and I said, and by the way, everybody, whenever I come to work here, Mommy always brings me an extra hug, right, Mommy? And she looked at me and said, maybe. And I said, maybe after all these years I've been demoted to a maybe? Mi corazón está roto. So, I mean, I just blared into Spanish, and Eddie understood me. So I go around, and again, using all the different languages. I can speak Spanish stepping out my front door every day. LA. I'm a minority in Los Angeles, okay? We have 75 official languages. There are 100,000 people of Korean descent in Los Angeles. So it's very, very diverse. I don't have a lot of patience with people that say English only. But we have a saying in Los Angeles, this is America, speak Spanish, you know? Because the majority of people there do. It's all land that we stole from Mexico in a war. I mean, so, as they say, we didn't cross the border crossed us. Using as many languages as I do, sometimes it gets a little weird. I'll answer somebody in Spanish when they ask me a question in English. I will find myself sometimes thinking in French. And, you know, so what goes on up here sometimes is kind of disturbing. And keeps me awake at night. Time for one more? Sir.
You live in Los Angeles, in Tampa Bay area? We have something called Gasparilla, where the pirates come and invade the city.
I heard something about that, yeah.
And you're a pirate, do you have a club over there in Los Angeles? Or is that just for a fun question?
No, I've actually looked that up. I've never taken a lot of time to find out if there's a piratical society, you might want to call it, in Los Angeles. I was invited to a con in Memphis, and they actually have what's called the Mid-South Buccaneers there. And I came in there full cosplay. We did skits, we did all this stuff. They were blown away by my pirate dialect, which you'll hear tomorrow. Those of you who can come to that. When we finished up, the head of the group said, "Paul, you made us all look like amateurs." I said, "I'm sorry about that, lad. It weren't my intention, I promise you." Maybe one more. Okay, one more question. Someone I haven't heard from before. Someone new. Yes, in the back, please.
How did it take?
What? One of us. He really went zombie on me. I'm sorry. Please.
How did you actually get a job as a voice actor?
That's one of those lengthy questions, not good to wait, save to the last, but it's understandable. Briefly, as a stage actor, you learn as many skills as you can. Combat, how to do Shakespeare properly, and accents and dialects. Someone heard me in Los Angeles doing my accents and my dialects, and again, I've taught at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, I know my stuff, right? And brought me in to a Christmas party. At the Christmas party, he wanted me to read The Night Before Christmas. You all know the story? Yeah, but this was the Cajun version. It's hilarious. And it even follows the same rhythm and pattern. Like 8 tiny reindeer, 8 alligator. And on Dancer, Prancer, Vixen, blah, 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 like stuff. En Gaston, Antiboy, en Pierre Nazé, Gininette, C. Suzette, Celeste and René, to the top of the porch, to the top of the wall. Make crawl alligator and be sure you don't fall. So the whole story is just hilarious. I didn't know it well enough to see where the comedy was, so I just was reading it straight and hoping I wasn't going to bomb. I was holding like 10 minutes for laughs. They all knew the story backward and forward, so the Cajun version made them scream with laughter. And at that party were writers, directors, actors, and producers of Robotech, which was my first series. And to this day, I still work with many of the same people. Ladies and gentlemen, we're out of time. Thank you so much. Thank you. You can come to Actors Unplugged later on, it'll be great. I'm going back to the autograph area right now, and tomorrow again, see about seeing Pirates. Pirate Curses. Thank you so much.